Welcome back to the video, to the channel, I want this video to be a laid back video. I want it to be like we're just two photography buddies and we're talking face to face and we're just having a moment. That's how I want it to be. I think YouTube there might be a sense of superiority in a lot of YouTube videos that I watch where it's like, you're going to listen to me. I make six figures. Here's some tips. Here's some secrets. Like, subscribe, watch along, blah, blah, blah. It's like someone's talking down to me and they're trying to teach me a thing or two about things. And I don't like that. I just want it to be mano-y-mano, talking like we're friends. So the first thing is I went out to Decatur, Illinois, which is central Illinois. I do this every once in a while to meet up with Vince, who lives in Chicago, and John, who his family lives in Indiana. So we like to meet up halfway in the middle. And we went out there recently, and it was cold as balls. I think it was like 30 degrees with 25-mile-an-hour winds. So not the best conditions for photography. But I did my best. I made like 3 photos, I think. They all suck. And that's pretty much it. But I had a good time. We had some coffee, too much coffee at a diner. And we had a fireball shot or two. And it was a good time. Vince ended up making a lot more work than me. And he has the benefit of shooting digital, which is nice. He took a lot of photos, and a lot of them are bangers. So congrats to him. And yeah, that was probably the last time that I went out to make photos because it's cold as hell all the time in Missouri. And it's not fun to go out and make photos when it's 10 or 20 degrees. But I probably need to be better about that, and I need to just suck it up and go out there because if I don't make work, I don't have work to show. And I feel bad about myself. So yeah, I've recently done some assignments. I'm averaging like 1 a month probably, which is really nice. It kind of keeps me on my toes, keeps me on my A game. But yeah, some of my favorite ones that I've done recently was this assignment that I did in Atlanta, Illinois. And Vince actually met up with me for that as well. But I was sent out to photograph some Route 66 attractions, these big fiberglass statues that people have made all along Route 66 in the United States. And there's a big museum of them in Atlanta, Illinois. So I went out there, spent the whole day out there, talked with the owner of the museum. And actually, when I was speaking with him, me and Vince were inside. We looked outside, and a Buddhist monk was walking up in his orange robes, like the whole shebang. And the museum owner was speaking with us, and me and Vince looked at each other like, are you seeing this? Should we just like cut this guy off and run out there? Turns out the fellow was named Trey, and he was just visiting with his family. He didn't speak any English, so I was speaking to his sister or his friend. I can't really remember which it was, but I was speaking with her, and I explained to her that I was doing an assignment and if they would like to pose for a photo. So they did. We went over to this seating area, and it was just a really surreal photo that I captured. That was pretty cool. I wasn't necessarily the biggest fan of how it looked. The lighting was pretty bad, and I just don't like the colors for some reason, but the actual subject matter was really cool. And that happened at the beginning of the day. So I started off strong, and it was just a good start to the assignment as a whole. I ended up taking some landscapes around Atlanta, some of the statues, as well as taking some portraits of the owner. And it turned out to be a really cool assignment. Some of the books that I purchased last year that inspired me, number 1 has to be Sons of the Living by Brian Scoopmont. I've talked about him ad nauseum on this channel, and I'm sure you guys are sick of it, but he's just truly an incredible photographer and an amazing inspiration. And I say that because this body of work specifically, it was made over 10 years in the American Southwest. He traveled in Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, all of these states. He was on the road for over 150 days, and he was meeting drifters, hitchhikers, probably people without homes, and he photographed them in a way that is just so passionate and so intimate that it just makes it hard to believe that these are actually strangers that he met on the road. And I think that's why I think so highly of it, because I know the time and effort and how hard it is to build short relationships like that and get soulful portraits out of people. So the fact that he was able to do that, and just this body of work being so big and epic, and the sense of scale that it has, is just really inspirational. And I highly suggest everyone picking up that book. I know the first edition is sold out, but there is a second edition coming, so be on the lookout for that. I was also lucky enough to have an amazing wife who picked up a copy of Graze the Mountain Sends by Brian Scootmont. As all of you probably know, it's one of the bodies of work that I love the most, and the portrait of Ralph is what pretty much kicked off my whole entire photography journey or career, specifically in large format. I just think that portrait it just looks like a painting. It makes me want to know the person. It makes me want to know Ralph. And I always think about what led to that specific encounter. And I do this with a lot of photos. I think about that with a lot of Alex Soth work or Joel Sternfeld. Just what was he doing right before this picture was taken, or right before he asked this guy for a photo? And we're lucky enough to have someone like Alex Soth who tells a lot of behind the scenes stories with everything. And Joel Sternfeld also does this on his Instagram page. And even though I like looking at those stories and hearing about the encounters, it loses a little bit of the mystery whenever you do learn exactly how it happened. So do I want to know what led to this photo? Or do I want to know the story behind Ralph? Yes and no, but I just love that a single photo like that can bring up all of these ideas and these thoughts in my head. And not only that, but just inspire me to go out each and every day. And to have that on my shelf and to have that physically is pretty special to me. The next two books are by Matthew Genetempo. One is Jasper, that came out in 2019, and then Dog Breath, which came out last year in 2024. Jasper is a series of pictures made in the Ozarks about people that live by themselves or just outside of everyday cities. It's a little bit like Broken Manual by Alex Soth. And the reason that I like it is because, again, it was shot on large format, but it is black and white, and it's a little bit more lyrical and poetic compared to my own work that is much more documentarian or just authentic and realistic in a way. And I think that's hard to do with color work, to make things more lyrical. But with black and white, it allows you to be a little bit more creative in that way. And that's what I really like about Jasper. Not only are some of the landscapes very ethereal with the fog and the mountaintops and the tree lines, but even the portraits, again, I always just wonder who this person is, what led to this conversation. It just really opens up my world photographically in a sense. And then with Dog Breath, it's a little bit different because it's not as staged, it's not as strict, it's not as locked off. He's still using a 4x5 camera, but he made the work a lot more quickly and a lot more in a fast-paced way, which led to some really interesting compositions and a lot of interesting subject matter, which with my own work, I know a lot of my work is locked off. It's very center weighted. It's not very of the moment in a sense. And I do have some photos like that, but moving forward, I want to be a little more like that and just have less rigidness, I guess, in my photos, and just allow for a little bit more spontaneity, which I think brings a whole nother level to the work that you're making. But both of those books are big, wonderful printing quality, and I just love the way that the black and white looks on the specific paper. The last book that I want to talk about is Gathered Leaves, annotated by Alex Soth. I don't have any Alex Soth books besides Niagara, which I also picked up last year. But the reason that I like this book is because it's a compilation of all his books in one. The paper isn't that great. I already ripped a couple of pages. It's like newsprint paper, but it makes it light. It makes it a little bit smaller, and you can pack in all of his work into one single book. And the beauty of this is that it does indeed show every picture in the book, but it also has these behind the scenes notes as well as behind the scenes photos that Alec took along the way. And the reason I like that is because it shows a very human side of the photographer. And when you look at someone like Alex Soth, who sells prints for $60,000 or $200,000, to see him open up and take a little peek behind the curtain and show what it's like to actually be a photographer, I really admire that. And I try to do that myself with this YouTube channel and just show my process, talk about my faults, talk about the pros and cons of everything. And I think when people do that, it makes doing the things that they do seem a little more possible. So I love that about Alec. He's always done that, and I hope he continues to do it. The last thing that I wanted to speak on was some faults of mine and some goals. I think, kind of like I said, with a lot of people on YouTube or a lot of photographers on social media, they want to come across as superior or as if they have the answers to everything. Because most of the time they're trying to sell something or sell themselves as an expert, which I understand completely. But I get a lot of messages and emails saying, thanks for just being open about certain aspects of being a photographer. Thanks for speaking on being insecure about certain things, or being nervous about knocking on a door, or just being open about certain things. And I recently had a photographer reach out and say, like, whenever I go out and shoot, I'm just like overwhelmed by everything, and I end up not making any work. And that's one of my biggest faults as well. I'm very insecure as a photographer as well as in my personal life. And this probably goes back years and years and years to just being insecure as a young person. I used to weigh a lot and people would make fun of me a little bit. So I've always been insecure about my own personal appearance. And I think that carried on into being a photographer. But these insecurity issues, they come up whenever I'm out driving around, I see something that I want to photograph, and then I start overthinking everything. I'm thinking about, why am I even out here? Why is this even important? Is this work going to be or do anything in the future? And then it leads to inaction. And when I say that, I know that it sounds silly, and I know that you should just push through that. And the only thing that I have going for me is that I always push through it, and I always end up either knocking on the door or getting the shot that I want. It just might take some time. And I think when you see people online or you see other photographers and all you see is the results, you're not thinking about what it really took to get that shot. And you're not thinking about if they were insecure or how many times they didn't take the shot or how many times they went back to try to get that shot. All you're seeing is the result. And then you see on Instagram or social media, result. And you're seeing everyone doing all this shit. And you think to yourself, wow, I can't even get out of my car and take a landscape photo. Or I can't even go up to that person and ask them for a portrait. Well, I'm just telling you that for every result that you see online, every YouTube video where it shows someone killing it, there was insecurities before that. People were questioning themselves before that. It happens to everyone. Everyone has imposter syndrome. Everyone thinks their work isn't good enough. Everyone thinks that no one's going to care. And just know that that's normal. And I go through it. Everyone that I've ever talked to goes through it. And even when you speak to photographers that are 10, 15, 20 years older than you, they say the exact same thing. I don't think it will ever go away. And the only thing that you can do is just push through and eventually get what you want to get. And like I said, anytime that I've driven around the block or driven out to Fayetteville, Illinois 4 times and didn't knock on the door, I always end up knocking on the door. I always end up getting the shot that I want, and I always end up talking to the person. It just might take some time. And don't put this added pressure on yourself to get those shots. You need to think of photography as a lifelong pursuit. And if you don't get it 1 week, or you don't get it in 2 weeks or a month, there's always time to go back. As long as the person is still alive, as long as the building is still standing, you can always still photograph it. So don't put pressure on yourself. Just relax and know that a lot of people go through the same problems that you are going through. If you guys have any questions about anything, send me a message on Instagram. That's where I post my portfolio. And then on Threads, that's where I talk shit to camera companies in order to get free gear, which I haven't yet because they're too scared to send me anything. I'm on Blue Sky, which is the new one. If Instagram goes down the shitter, that's where everyone else will go. But right now, there's no one on it. And then you can also send me an email or send me a letter in the mail, and I'll probably get back to you. It might take a couple weeks, though. That's all I got to say. I hope to see you in the next one. Next video is talking all about my solo exhibition in Jackson, Tennessee. So if you have any questions about that, drop them down below, and I'll try to get to them. But I'll see you. Hope you have a good one.
There
Bye.
seems to be a growing trend in Hollywood now where there's a lot of prominent product placement. It's a partnership between the companies and the film. The companies will put their product prominently in the film, and the film will receive budget support as a result of advertising. How do you, as a filmmaker, feel about this growing trend?
Bullshit. That's how I feel. Total fucking bullshit.